Hey guys. Good morning, good morning. Good morning. Hey Kristen. How are ya? Hey and Angie. How are you guys this morning? I'll wait for it to get going here. How was everyone's week so far? It's a little rough this week here at the Davies house. We'll see who's all getting on this morning. I don't know. Thomas, you don't count. You do count, but we're okay, Kristen. It's been a tough one this week. I'm not gonna lie. We just had a lot of stuff happening around here, so it's been a little bit crazy. Hey, Rachel. All right, I don't know if, let's see. I'm waiting. I don't know, like it says, I don't know. I still haven't figured this whole thing out. I mean, I kind of figured it out, but all right. Well, it looks like it's coming on this morning, so at least it was nice this last weekend. It was beautiful out. We could blow the stink out of the Davies house because there's lots of stink in here these days. Opened all the windows, sat outside. Are those eyeballs, Thomas? I can't, from here it looks like sushi, but that's because I need glasses. But then maybe it's brown eyes. All right. I will go ahead and get started this morning. I don't know if Jody's coming on. I kind of want to message her and ask her if she's coming on because I want to wait for her if she's going to come on. The birds. Oh, anyways, okay. Well, this weekend was a little bit tough here. It was definitely, there was just some stuff happening and it was just kind of tough. I can't really say too much until, I don't know, but definitely a tough one. I got sunburnt. Remember to put your, I know. Please don't think I'm a bad mom, but I don't ever put sunblock on my kids. I feel like they, I know one day I'm going to regret that. I mean, I do, like if we're at the beach or something, I will, but they're outside all day, every single day. I was waiting for you, Jody. You should be sorry. I'm joking. Don't be sorry. You're okay. You know, I just chat for a minute until everybody's on that I know wants to be here. Okay. But nobody got burnt. Nobody even really got tan. And we were outside like all weekend. So, I don't know. All right. We are in Esther chapter 7. So, we'll get moving on that. It's kind of, there's not a whole lot of commentary on this part of it. So there wasn't like, well, there's things, but, it's kind of the, I don't know. We'll get into it a little bit here, but I'm going to open this up in prayer and we will get going here. I know you're fried, Jody. Yeah, but you have like the not palest, but you burn pretty easy. I feel like we could go my kids just get really dark in the sun. They don't like really burn or anything like that. I don't know. They just get like, I don't know, crisp, but not burnt. Okay, so I'm going to open this up in prayer and we will get moving here in Esther. So, Lord, thank you so much for today. And I just thank you so much for these ladies. I pray that you guide my heart and my mind, Father, towards you, and that you draw out of these words what you want us to have in our heart, Father. I just pray for a narrow mind, a straight mind as I read through these things, and to not be distracted and all over the place, Father. I pray for these ladies that they can kind of we can tag along and chat about your word and see how your hand works in things even when we don't see it, Lord. We lift up your name. Amen. Okay. So here we are, chapter 7. You guys ready? Everybody ready? Somebody give me a thumbs up if you're ready. It takes a second, so I'm gonna drink a drink of coffee. Bible's out, Esther chapter 7. All right. Okie dokie. All right. So we will start in verse 1:7. Haman gets hanged. That's the name of the game here. So the king and Haman went to dine. So okay, let's back up a little bit to chapter 6. So at the end of chapter 6 is where Mordecai gets honored instead of Haman, and Haman has to walk Mordecai around in the king's robes and all that jazz. And at the end, Haman goes back home to talk to his wife and his friends, and they say, since Mordecai, before whom your downfall has started, is of Jewish origin, you cannot stand against him. You will surely come to ruin. While they were still talking with him, the king's eunuchs arrived and hurried Haman away to the banquet Esther had prepared. So that's where we left off, and now we're going to start in that banquet. So chapter 7, verse 1. So the king and Haman went to dine with Queen Esther. And as they were drinking wine on the second day, the king again asked, Queen Esther, what is your petition? It will be given to you. What is your request? Even up to half the king's kingdom it will be granted. So again, we know that the king wants to know what Esther wants, and he wants to give Esther what she wants. And, up to half the kingdom. So really, if she asked for anything, he was going to give it to her. Which tells us that he loved her. Here and now anyways. So, and he cared for her, and and that is, again, one of those things where it's a divine hand, and there's something about Esther that people loved and were willing, she was, that whatever that was, that people wanted to give her what she wanted, like that genuineness about Esther. Because, kings don't have to behave that way. They can do whatever they want. So when they're kind, there's a reason. There's kings that are kind-hearted, but especially for Xerxes' case, he wants to please Esther. He wants to love her. So, here we are in verse 3. Then Queen Esther answered. She gets right to it in this one. She does no him-hawing around. If I have found favor with you, O king, and if it pleases your majesty, grant my life. This is my petition. And spare my people. This is my request. For I and my people have been sold for destruction and slaughter and humiliation. If we had merely been sold as male and female slaves, I would have kept quiet, because no such distress would justify disturbing the king. Now, is that the right one? Okay. I'm going to, wait, let me see. Maybe it's in this one. I want to read what they were saying. There's two reasons that she could have. Esther refers to the bribe of Haman offering to the king. She also, okay, that's kind of the next thing. So when she talks about there being that it would have been better, like if they would have been sold into slavery, she wouldn't have bugged him, right? Sorry, I'm trying to get my wits about me here, and I was thinking it was somewhere else. So, there's two reasons for that. One could have been that the affliction of the Jews would be less injurious to the king if slavery was all that was involved. So, she knows that God is God, and that there's going to be ramifications for killing the Jewish people. And she may have been saying that I wouldn't have bothered you if it was just slavery, because our people have been enslaved before, and it wouldn't have been such a big deal. But murdering the people, there's going to be ramifications for that. But it's probably more likely that Esther, there's a second reason that she would have said that I wouldn't have bothered the king if it were just slavery. And that is that Esther would not trouble the king if slavery was the only issue. And not because, necessarily because of the ramifications of God, but because she did, the people, like we said, had been enslaved before. And if it weren't just the people were still living but going to be in slavery, she wouldn't have risked her life to bother the king about it. So I don't know, I just thought that was kind of interesting. So let's move on to verse 5. King Xerxes asked Queen Esther, "Who is he? Where is the man who has dared to do such a thing?" Esther said, "The adversary and enemy is this vile Haman." Now, this is a direct, we talk about how there's parallels all throughout Esther, from, it moves from the king and Haman having power and all their glory, and it moves over, as the story goes, to Esther and Mordecai and elevating them and them having power. And this is one of those moments where it's a mirror, where she says, Esther said, "The adversary and enemy is this vile Haman," is a direct parallel to when Haman says to about Mordecai, that Jew Mordecai. And it's meant to have that parallel feeling and in our minds where, when Haman was in power, he got to say these nasty things or whatever. And now Esther has the king's ear, and he's listening to her, and she can, she gets to say what she thinks about Haman, that vile Haman. The king asked, and she's telling. So let's continue with verse 6. Then Haman was terrified before the king and queen. The king got up in a rage, left his wine, and went out in the palace garden. But Haman, realizing that the king had already decided his fate, stayed behind to beg Queen Esther for his life. So he knows that the king's killing him. He knows it. He knows that's what's happening. He knows the king. He's persuaded the king to kill other people, or exile other people. He knows the king's temperament. He knows what's coming because of what he did. Now, he also knows that his only chance of survival is to get on his knees and beg Esther to save his life, because Esther has the king's ears now. And so we'll move on to verse 8. Just as the king returned from the palace garden to the banquet hall, Haman was falling on the couch where Esther was reclining. The king exclaimed, "Will he even molest the queen while she is with me in my house," or in the house? So, again, this is one of those parallels where before Mordecai wouldn't fall on his knees to honor Haman. Now Haman is falling to beg for the queen to save him. And when the king comes in, it looks like he's falling on top of her, begging, "Please, please, please." And this is the king's opportunity. This is an opportunity because what it is when you to touch the queen inappropriately or to have relations with the queen is a direct threat to the king. It's like making a statement saying that you want to become king and you're going to fight the king for the power. And so that's when he says, "Will he even molest the queen while I'm still sitting here in this house?" Is the king then has the power to kill whoever is touching the queen because it's seen as a threat to the king's power. And so the king isn't dumb. He knows that Mordecai isn't trying to feel her up or anything like that. He knows that that's what Mordecai is doing, but this is the king's out. He can say, "Oh, you put your hands on Queen Esther. Now you are done for, and I don't have to answer any questions." Now, this is also a stark contrast to earlier when Mordecai comes to Esther, and Esther brings before the king the plot that the two guardmen were going to murder the king. And he has it fully investigated. He doesn't just take it at its word. He investigates the situation, makes sure that that's, what was going on before he, punishes the two guards. Now, in contrast to that, when it came to Queen Esther and the Jewish people and his anger with Haman, he didn't want to have to answer to anybody or have anybody question his motives or why or investigation or anything. This is, you're done. You're done, and I see my out. God gave me an out right in front of me. You touch the queen, and now you can be dead. So I just wanted to lay that idea out there. So as we keep going, I think we're halfway through verse 8. As soon as the word left the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. Then Harbana, one of the eunuchs attending the king, said, "A gallows 75 feet high stands at Haman's house." Oh, how perfect. He had it made for Mordecai, who spoke up to help the king. The king said, "Hang him on it." So they hanged Haman on the gallows he had prepared for Mordecai. Then the king's fury subsided. So, granted, these decisions are a little bit rash. Obviously, this is like a boom, boom, boom. He's mad. That's it. You're dead. And again, one of those things, we can see the mirroring of Haman hanging the gallows, which were, if you weren't here last week, it was not a 75-foot tall, gallows like we think gallows. It would have been a stick, and it would have been pointy on the top, and they would have pushed him through the stick, and he would have stayed there till he died. But it wasn't 75 feet tall like the stick was. They thought that it would have been on top of the walls of the city, or the walls around his house, or I think it was the walls of the city. Sorry. So they would, that would have been 65 feet tall, and then the pole would have been 10 feet tall or whatever, and they would have impaled him on the pole on top of the wall of the city, so everyone could see. And now Haman's idea was so that everybody could see what happens when you don't honor Haman. You die. I have so much power. There's the king, and then there's me right underneath him, and if you don't honor me and you don't do what I like, here's what happens to you. You get impaled on a stick on top of a wall so all the city can see. And, in stark contrast to that, Haman ends up hanging on those gallows up on top the city so that the whole world, their world, could see what happens when you go behind the king's back and do something wrong, or you try to hurt the queen, or when you dishonor Xerxes, this is what happens to you. And so we're at the end of chapter 7, but I don't know. So, Haman's dead. That's it. We see that. But the problem isn't solved yet. So this is what happens in 8, 9, and 10 is the problem gets solved, because now there's still an edict, right? There's still this edict that all the Jewish people are going to die, and there was no answer. So Queen Esther came before the king in this banquet and said her request, but there was no answer for her request within this banquet. There was no, once the king makes an edict, there's no turning it around. You can't go back on it. So there was no saving the people yet. The Jewish people yet in chapter 7, but there was redemption in the death of Haman, and there was an honoring of sense of Esther and Mordecai within here, which we know that in the end the Jewish people are saved, but the answer wasn't at this banquet. And I just want to settle on that point for a second, that sometimes when we are obedient and we do what we're supposed to do, and we we come to the second banquet and we ask for the salvation of our people, and we do the things, there's still a waiting. And there's, God will answer our calling, but not in the timing that we think it should be done. And I just, I just love that example that she did it. She did the thing. She did what she was supposed to do. And there was some honor in the fact that Haman dies, and there's answers within that, but the main problem is the Jewish people dying, and that's not solved yet. So, but she can have hope that that's what's going to happen because of the actions that the king took with Haman. And I just want to encourage you guys to have hope within your situations and your problems, and know that, so first she has the first banquet and she doesn't have the courage, or maybe God asked her to wait, or whatever it was, the reason she waited for the second banquet. We know that God was working in the waiting between the two banquets. We see God's hand elevating Mordecai, and, this contempt being created for Haman, and the stage is being set for his death. We can see that happening, but Esther didn't see that happening. Esther didn't know what was going on, and it's likely that she didn't know that Mordecai was being honored in this way. It was likely that she never knew that he got to be put in the king's robes and paraded around town. It's very likely that she had no idea whatsoever. And so, so the first, chapter 5, she has her first banquet. She doesn't ask. God's working in the in-between. And then the next morning she has her second banquet, and she finally has the courage to ask and do the thing. And whatever it is that God had called us to do, we have the courage and we finally do the thing. That doesn't mean that the answer is coming at that moment. And just know that there's hope. And at the end, his people are always, always the winners. And in the end, we are always the winners. We will always, and our end may not look how we think our end should look, but know that when everything is said and done and the book's closed and the story ends, we win. We are the victors, the ones who love Jesus. There will be justice. There will be honoring of God. There will be perfection. There'll be no more tears and no more sorrow. The day comes and we win. Maybe not when we think we should, but we win. And I just want to encourage you guys in that to know that even though we had our second banquet, and we can see some, there's some tangible good things that are happening. And I don't know that Esther wanted Haman to die. I don't know that that's what her wish was, but I'm sure there has to be a little bit of a relief knowing that he's gone, right? He hates her people so much and has so much power. He can do so many things to destroy her people. So there has to be a sense of relief that he's gone, but we don't know that she wants him to die. We don't know that, but she has to have that sense of relief. And while we can have a sense of relief and we can see God's hand working in our lives and heading us towards the part where there's relief and the part where we win, sometimes the waiting is the hard part. And I just want to encourage you that you aren't alone in the waiting. We're all in it. We're all, in some kind of limbo a lot of times, waiting to hear God's answer. And, but we always win. We always win. We may not win the way we think we should win or the way it looks like we should. But we always win when we are on the winning team, which is Jesus. So, anybody have anything that they want to say or talk about? With this stuff, it takes a second, so I'm going to just give it a second to see if anyone puts anything, and then if no one has anything to say about this particularly, we can close out in prayer, and then we can just chat for a few minutes about some stuff if anybody wants to. I'm going to give it just a second. Next week we'll do 8. I don't know who's all going back to work after that. I don't know who all of you guys are still home through the end of May or who are going back to work or anything, but just these if you have to miss them on Wednesday mornings, they'll be available later, so don't give up. Definitely working on the waiting in my life. Kristen, I think, in some form, and I know that yours is a little bit different than everyone else's and some things, but we all are. I think that we are we are all right now in kind of this, in a culture of waiting to know what's happening next and what we can do and what we can't do. And everybody's waiting looks a little bit different, but we all have this general waiting about the coronavirus stuff of when we can leave our houses, when we can go do things again. It's, and that's why I think this is so relevant that the redemption, we know she asks the question, she does what she's supposed to do, but he doesn't say, yes, right now, repeal the edict and fix the thing. He doesn't do that. And, but we know the end. We know the end. But we know the end in Esther, and we know the end in real life, and we know that we win. We win. Eventually, we win. I don't know. I just have to keep telling myself that. We win. We win. At the end, we win. All right, so there's no other comments really, so I'm going to go ahead and close this out in prayer, and then if anybody wants to stick around, you can, because we can talk about some more things, and I just don't, oh wait, okay, Sorry, I'm trying to read it. Come on. How do I get it to... Okay, there we go. That's so hard, Rachel. And I think God wants to... I mean, I know he wants us to come to him with his request. And when we are in alignment with God, when we are doing what we are supposed to be doing, when he says he'll give us the desires of our hearts, and that's when we're in line with him, the desire of our hearts are his desires. So a lot of times it ends up working out that maybe what our mind had thought, because we have minds. There's a reason we think about things that's not meant to be. We're allowed to think. We're not supposed to be just, drones or blind sheep, wandering about. We're allowed to think and have ideas. But when we're in alignment with him and we're following him and we're honoring him, oftentimes our desires and how things go are in alignment with what he wants and his desires. And so it's okay, it's okay to have an idea of how things should go, but don't be so stuck in them and so permanent in them. And, for me, we get so glued into how things should go that we miss what God's doing in it. Like we miss seeing how he's making it work out and where he wants to grow us and where he wants us to have honor for him and where he desires for our lives to go, because we're so stuck in how we should be. So I don't know. I totally feel you there, Rachel. It's so hard. It's so hard. I'm not type A, because I'm not but I definitely am bossy. Is that I don't know. I'm not, I just want things done right. I don't like, things not being done right. And I, for me as a parent, that's really hard, because you don't just wake up one day knowing how to do things the right way. You're taught how to do them the right way. And so we have to teach our children. I sometimes have to remind Thomas and myself that our kids didn't wake up just knowing how to do dishes or how to organize their bedroom or fold clothes or, anything. They don't just know those things. We got to teach them how to do them. And I feel the same way that God sometimes is like that with me. He's like, okay, we need to teach you how to be patient, and we need to teach you wisdom, and we need to teach you. So he, kind of takes a deep breath with me and says, okay, now I taught you this yesterday, but you obviously forgot. So this is how patience works. Let me show you. And then he does something where I have to have lots of patience. All right. I'm not seeing anything else right now, so I'm going to close this out in prayer, and then you guys are welcome to stay on, and we can talk about some other things, but don't feel obligated. Don't ever feel obligated anyways, but you know what I mean. You know what I'm saying. I'm tired, you guys. Okay. In my soul. I'm it's tired I'm weary in my bones. All right. Lord, thank you so much for today. And we are almost to the end of the story, Lord, and we see you honored within these pages of Esther, Father. And we are so thankful that you gave us the wisdom and you give us the vision to see you working and to see your hands in things when your name isn't even mentioned. And how true that is in our life, Father, that we can honor you and glorify you in things where it seems that you may be invisible, that you really aren't there. But if we ask and we seek you, Lord, you will show us how your hand is in most things. How you don't want evil and you don't want terror, but you will use them to catapult your kingdom forward, Father. And we are so grateful for that, because I know personally, Lord, there are lots of evil things and lots of terrible things that happen within our lives, Father, and I'm so thankful that you can use those and catapult us towards you, Lord. I just pray for these ladies over the week, Father, that you can, as we read chapter 8, speak to them in their hearts and just keep them safe and keep them coming back, and so we can be together and talk about you. There is nothing as wonderful as chatting about you, Lord. I just pray these things in your name. Amen. So, anyways, what was I saying? I'm tired in my bones. Is there anything else anyone wants to talk about anything so far within Esther? Anything at all? Whatever. I'm saying a lot, you guys. I'm really sorry. There's an ant or a bug. So, there was something I was reading and I wanted to like read it to you guys, but I don't know where I was looking at it in. Oh, okay. So I thought it was in a different paragraph. So in this thing here where I'm doing the Esther stuff, there's all kinds of charts and different things. And so one of the things was the human choices and God's sovereignty. And I just loved this little excerpt. It was like, you know, I was reading all kinds of things last night, and this really just popped out at me, and about how, you know, the sovereignty of God. So anyways, so there's one side is human choices, and then there's God's sovereignty on the other side of this list. And the first one is human choices are real and have consequences. God's side. God works through human choices. So, like I said, we'll just read them all and then we'll talk about it. Human choices do not and cannot deter God's actions and his plans. He's going to win. The sovereignty of God. God does not approve evil, but may use it to further his ultimate plan of salvation and judgment for the world. And then on the human side, there's one more. We are foolish and think we can thwart God, you know, outsmart him. And on God's sovereignty side, it says, wisdom is shown in acting according to God's principles. It just really stood out to me, because I feel like throughout this whole book and the study so far, that the idea of that he can take, you know, just that verse in my mind is just replaying and replaying, that he can use all things for the good of those who love him, even sucky people, even people who aren't obedient their whole lives to everything all the time, always, people who have messed up. And because Esther, she's kind of a mess up. She doesn't do it right. Like we talked about that. And there's something about her that's, everybody loves, and we love her. We don't see her. We're not shaking hands with her right now, but we love Esther as a Christian community. We love this book of Esther. We have women's conferences surrounding it, and we read books about it, and there's Bible studies about it, which there is about everything, but women are just drawn to this book of Esther. The same thing with Ruth, because there's something about her. There's something about God's hand in her life and how it weaves in there, and seeing the providence, even though she's not perfect and she's not great, and she's just obedient is what she is. She's obedient. And what can happen with obedience? God can take obedience and turn it into the most amazing things. And I just, I don't know, that little excerpt there would just has me thinking about just how he can just use you. He can use me. Don't try to outsmart him. Don't try to outrun him. Don't try to outthink him. Don't try to don't think that you're so bad and so sinful that he can't use you. That's its own form of pride. Where was I reading? I'm going to look real quick. Ladies, if anybody has anything to say, you can put it in there so we can all see. I should have put a little... I need to just, when I'm reading stuff, put little tabbies when I find something that I want to talk to you guys about. Hold on. I don't know which one it was in now. I think it might have been, I was maybe reading about the Beatitudes. Let me see. I don't know. Is there anything that that you guys are just seeing God speaking to your life through this Esther study? Anything you guys want to encourage each other with? Knowing that God is... Hold on, let's look in the front. I don't know, anything you guys want to say to each other, and just, or I don't know. I feel like we've all read a lot of things, or I don't want to make that assumption, but I know I've read lots of things about Esther and heard lots of things, throughout my Christian walk about Esther, and I just, I don't know, is there anything there that you guys want to encourage each other with? I don't know. I can't find it now. It was talking about how... Hold on. I don't know. I can't find it now. I don't know. I can't find what I was looking for, so obviously I wasn't supposed to. I was doing too much last night. I don't know. It was talking about how when you think you're not good enough, that God can't use you, that's its own form of sin. You know, and I think I was talking about this last week. That I wish I want to be able to read it to you guys now. I can't. I need to put sticky notes on things. It was, I want to say it was the Beatitudes, because I thought it was about, I was reading about the meekness and stuff like that, and how we're supposed to be meek, which is, you know, humble. We're supposed to be humble people where we're not, you know, self-elevating and have self-pride and exalting ourselves, but that what we're doing is exalting God and honoring God, not honoring ourselves. But also, when you don't do what you're supposed to do, when you aren't obedient, when you don't have the second banquet, and you don't ask the king, and if you don't do what you're meant to do, that's its own form of, that's not meekness, and that's not being humble. That's actually, you know, that's being disobedient, and it's its own form of sin, and it's its own form of selfishness, because you were so consumed with how you think you were going to look, that you don't do what God calls you to do. And that's, you know, that's selfishness, and I want to read how it said it. Whatever. I don't know. So I don't know. I just that idea just he's gonna see us through, and his kingdom reigns at the end. And don't be so scared, and know that, you know, God doesn't give us a spirit of fear. And we can be scared of something, and what you do when you're scared determines who you are, right? So we can be scared. You know, fear is the thing. If we see a car coming down the road and our kid is standing in the middle of the road, it's okay to have that, oh my gosh, I need to save my kid. There's a healthy amount of fear, and fearing God is good, because he's divine. And sorry, I'm switching how I'm sitting. All those things, but what we do with our fear when it comes to being obedient to God is who we are. And we can either be meek and not say and not do and not be obedient, or we can and still be scared. It's still scary. Everything's scary. I mean, it doesn't make it not scary, but know that even though you're scared and you're fearful, you're going to do it anyways, because you want to be obedient, and that he will see you to fruition. He will see you through. So, I don't know, but okay, ladies, I don't see any more comments really coming through and whatnot. So, I guess we will be done. Gosh, if I find that thing that I was looking at, I swear it was in this thing I was reading about the Beatitudes, but I wasn't seeing it. But I'm also kind of, I don't know. I hope everybody's week was okay, and it's kind of crazy here. I'll talk more about it next week, I think. I just will. But it's been a little bit of chaos, a little bit of crazy, and he'll see us through, ladies. This isn't the end all be all. The world, you know, we have to be obedient to our leaders and honor them and things like that. This isn't our home. This isn't where we belong. This isn't where we're going to stay forever. There's actually all of eternity that we're going to live with Jesus in perfection. So, if you love him. But, I don't know. This world isn't our home. We'll get to go there someday. Not yet, but someday. And it's okay. Just take a deep breath. We're going to get through it. We're going to get through it. It's going to end. It won't stay like this forever. So, all right. I love you guys. And we are in Esther chapter 8 next week. So, if you want to read through that. And then the following week will be 9 and 10. I was actually considering just doing everything next week, 7 or 8, 9, and 10. So that we could be done in case people were going back to work. But then I thought, no, that's not what let's just stick to the plan. Don't get all excited and freaked out. Don't get freaked out. Let's just stick with our plan of next week is 8, and then we will be the week before Memorial Day weekend will be our last Wednesday, and then we'll be done for a while. And I don't know what we're going to do after this. I don't know if I'm going to continue doing something or if I'm going to take a little bit of a break for a little while, or I don't know. You guys have to let me know what you want. I was thinking about doing 1st and 2nd Samuel, but I don't know. Then I was kind of thinking about going through like the Beatitudes and just doing one a week, and then, talking about it and having them be like short, almost maybe like 15-20 minutes versus however long these are, 45 minutes or so, an hour. And just kind of talking about those things, because I don't know, God's really had those on my heart and what they mean and why they are what they are. So I don't know. If you guys would be interested in doing something like that, let me know. So maybe like over the summer, and I don't know. I don't know yet. So, all right. I guess I'll see you next Wednesday, ladies. 9:30, chapter 8 of Esther. I miss everybody really bad. I want to see everybody. There was a reason I was going to tell you. If you guys are not on, I have a Davies Bible study page. And I was going to do, I know what it was. If I was going to do something over the summer, I wanted to do it through that versus having it on all of Facebook Live. So if anybody would like to be on the Davies Bible Study Facebook group, let me know here, and if you're not on there already, I can add you onto it. And that way, if we do stuff over the summer, I'll probably just do it via that. And if you can invite people to be on there, if somebody wants to watch or whatever, that's fine. But versus having it be open to everybody, that way we can have a little bit more of a private not that, I guess it doesn't really matter, but I was just thinking I'd like to use that avenue versus all of everything, so that we could get a little more in depth about some specific things or whatever. So it would be a little less general. So if anybody isn't on that page, let me know in the comments if you'd like to be on the page, and I can put you on there. So all right, guys, I love you, and I will see you back next week.